Well, did seeing all 56 nominees help me out this year? Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today, I'm going to be talking about the results of last night's 93rd Academy Awards, and comparing the actual winners to my picks and predictions. If you haven't already watched my Oscar prediction video, you can check it out here to see not only my personal picks and predictions for all 23 categories, but also my reasoning for those predictions. In this video, we're going to go through all 23 of those categories, and for each, I'm going to tell you the nominees, remind you of my personal pick, recap who I thought would win, and then briefly talk about the actual winner. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, ranked lists, and trailer reactions. Remember, these are just my thoughts, so be sure to post your personal thoughts on the 2021 Oscars in the comments below. I've already reviewed some of these movies on this channel, so if you want to check those out for some more in-depth thoughts on each of them, I'll put links in the description below, and also link some of them up in the cards as we go along. Alright, let's talk about these results. Original Screenplay. The nominees were Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. My personal pick was The Trial of the Chicago 7, but I thought Minari would actually win. And the Oscar went to Promising Young Woman. Well, I started the night off with an incorrect pick and an incorrect prediction, but I'm not unhappy with this win. This was actually initially my first choice for both personal pick and prediction, but I ended up changing both of them about a day before I recorded my predictions video, because I thought the structure and dialogue was stronger in the other picks. If we were going on just original story, Promising Young Woman was the clear standout for me. So again, even though I got this wrong, I'm happy that it won. Adapted Screenplay. The nominees were Borat, subsequent movie film, The Father, Nomadland, One Night in Miami, and The White Tiger. My personal pick was The Father, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to The Father. Not gonna lie, I was really nervous about this one. Even though I predicted it, I was far from positive that it was actually gonna win. It had some tough competition with Nomadland, and so I'd be really curious to see the votes on this one, because I bet it was super close. But I definitely think it was the right choice, because the screenplay was just excellent at portraying the disorienting style of the story. It matched it really well, but it also flowed in a way that made it never get frustrating for the viewer, which was pretty amazing considering how frustrating it was for the characters. So just a really great structure, some good dialogue, great characters. It deserved it. International Feature Film. The nominees were Another Round, Better Days, Collective, The Man Who Sold His Skin, and Quo Vadis Ida. My personal pick was Quo Vadis Ida, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to Another Round. Okay, another double miss for me, but to be completely honest, I'm not surprised. This one had a lot of hype heading into the ceremony, and I think it was the clear frontrunner, even though I really disagreed. I don't really get all the love for this one. I thought it was an okay movie. I enjoyed it just fine, but it was nowhere close to Oscar-worthy for me, especially when compared to all 4 of the other nominees. Actor in a supporting role. The nominees were Sacha Baron Cohen in The Trial of the Chicago 7, Daniel Kaluuya in Judas and the Black Messiah, Leslie Odom Jr. in One Night in Miami, Paul Raci in Sound of Metal, and Lakeith Stanfield in Judas and the Black Messiah. My personal pick was Sacha Baron Cohen, but I thought Daniel Kaluuya would actually win. And the Oscar went to Daniel Kaluuya. No surprise here, though I really think this was a strange category this year with all the ensemble choices. Paul Raci was really the only one in a kind of traditional supporting role this year. So it's tough, because I'm glad Kaluuya got it. Very well deserved, but did he really belong in the supporting category, especially with another nominee from the same movie? Tough nominating choices when you've got so many big ensemble movies in the same year. Makeup and hairstyling. The nominees were Emma, Hillbilly Elegy, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, and Pinocchio. My personal pick was Emma, but I thought Pinocchio would actually win. And the Oscar went to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Another double miss for me, but I'm so glad my prediction wasn't right. I know that sounds crazy, because it was my prediction, so I should have wanted it to be correct, but man did I really dislike Pinocchio. So I'm relieved it didn't get it with that haunting makeup. But anyway, Ma Rainey was actually my second choice for both pick and prediction, so I'm really not surprised with this category, even though I got it wrong. Costume design. The nominees were Emma, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, Mulan, and Pinocchio. My personal pick was Emma, but I thought Ma Rainey's Black Bottom would actually win, and the Oscar went to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So again, not a big surprise here. I knew it was going to be going to a period piece, but I think there was a chance for it to go any of three ways, with either Ma Rainey, Emma, or Mank. But the costume design of Ma Rainey really stood out as a means of setting the time period for that period piece, which put it on top. Those snazzy yellow shoes didn't hurt either. Directing. The nominees were Another Round, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, and Promising Young Woman. My personal pick was Promising Young Woman, but I thought Nomadland would actually win, and the Oscar went to Nomadland. The winner here was no surprise, but I will say the presentation order of this year's Oscars held a few surprises. It was wild to see Best Director so early in the night. Anyway, Chloe Zhao makes history here, the second historic director win in a row following Bong Joon-ho last year. Again, she wasn't my personal pick, and Nomadland wasn't my favorite movie of last year, but this was a deserving win nonetheless. Sound. The nominees were Greyhound, Mank, News of the World, Soul, and Sound of Metal. My personal pick was Sound of Metal, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to Sound of Metal. Shocking, right? This was the category I was most confident about, and rightfully so. Both the sound design and sound mixing in this movie blew me away and made this film incredibly immersive. The story still would have been wonderful to watch had it not been for those remarkable sound elements, but it wouldn't have been nearly as effective or impactful. I also want to note that there was another odd presenting decision here with this category, because they had Riz Ahmed announcing the Oscar for his own movie, and it's not like this was some unexpected upset or anything. Live action short film. The nominees were Feeling Through, The Letter Room, The Present, Two Distant Strangers, and White Eye. My personal pick was Two Distant Strangers, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to Two Distant Strangers. For my personal pick, it was super close between Two Distant Strangers and Feeling Through. I really liked both, but the Groundhog Day quality of Two Distant Strangers put it on top for me because I'm a sucker for time loop movies. But I predicted it mostly because of its timeliness and social relevancy, and I think it probably got the win more so because of that than its story or style. Animated short film. The nominees were Burrow, Genius Loci, If Anything Happens, I Love You, Opera, and Yes People. My personal pick was If Anything Happens, I Love You, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to If Anything Happens, I Love You. Absolutely no surprise here. This was easily the strongest nominee, and also by far the most emotional one. Honestly, I thought this was the most emotional and strongest of all of the Oscar-nominated shorts from any of the three categories this year. I also really enjoyed Opera, but If Anything Happens was the clear narrative standout and was both heartbreaking and affecting. Animated feature film. The nominees were Onward, Over the Moon, a Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon, Soul, and Wolfwalkers. My personal pick was Soul, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to Soul. Pixar does it again. This was the other category I was the most confident about after sound, and the Soul win here is absolutely no surprise, and incredibly well deserved. The animation was amazing, the story was good, and the tackling of such existential themes was pretty impressive. This is another one I'd be really curious to see the votes on, though. I can't imagine it was all that close, but I would be really interested to see how many votes Wolfwalkers actually got. Documentary short subject. The nominees were Colette, A Concerto as a Conversation, Do Not Split, Hunger Ward, and A Love Song for Latasha. My personal pick was Colette, but I thought A Love Song for Latasha would actually win. And the Oscar went to Colette. I'm honestly really surprised by this one. This was the first category of the night where my personal pick won, but it wasn't my actual prediction. I thought for sure the experimental style and thematic content of A Love Song for Latasha was gonna earn it the win tonight. But I really enjoyed Colette. Maybe enjoyed isn't the right word, because it's sad and tough to watch, but it's the one that connected with me the most out of all the nominees this year, and I'm really happy it won. Documentary feature. The nominees were Collective, Crip Camp, The Mole Agent, My Octopus Teacher, and Time. My personal pick was Crip Camp, but I thought Collective would actually win. And the Oscar went to My Octopus Teacher. Big surprise here for me. I didn't think this one had a chance. It's very unexpected for this category to go to a film like that when there were so many more serious and topical nominees. Don't get me wrong, I liked My Octopus Teacher. I was just very surprised by its nomination. Maybe it's because I watched Animal Planet nonstop as a kid, but this just felt like a very typical nature show or nature special to me. But if it gets more people interested in octopuses, I'm all for it. Visual effects. The nominees were Love and Monsters, The Midnight Sky, Mulan, The One and Only Ivan, and Tenet. My personal pick was Tenet, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to Tenet. This one seemed like a completely obvious choice to me, but I will say that after publishing my predictions and taking a look at other people's, I was getting a little bit nervous because it was seeming like Tenet wasn't as obvious of a choice after all. But honestly, how would the big blockbuster action movie not take this category? The visual effects and all the backwards stuff in this movie were fantastic to watch, so I think this was a well-deserved win. Actress in a supporting role. The nominees were Maria Baklava in Borat's subsequent Moviefilm, Glenn Close in Hillbilly Elegy, Olivia Colman in The Father, Amanda Seyfried in Mank, and Yoo Jung-yoon in Minari. My personal pick was Yoo Jung-yoon, and I also thought she would actually win. And the Oscar went to Yoo Jung-yoon. This was probably the win that I was most happy about tonight. There were some other really good supporting performances nominated here, but I am so glad that Yoo Jung-yoon took it. I know that I predicted her to win, but I was really not confident at all with that prediction. It was more wishful thinking on my part, so that's a big reason why this win makes me so happy. She did such a good job in that role, and really made that film for me. Production design. The nominees were The Father, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, News of the World, and Tenet. My personal pick was Tenet, but I thought Mank would actually win. And the Oscar went to Mank. So I'll admit that my personal pick was way out there, and I never expected it to actually win. So I'm happy that my true prediction came through on this one. Production design is one of those categories that really favors period pieces. So I thought it was going to come down to Ma Rainey and Mank. But I think Mank got the edge here simply because it was a bigger production. It had way more sets and props than Ma Rainey did, and felt more immersive as a film as opposed to the more stage play feel of Ma Rainey. This is another one I'd be really curious to see how close the votes were, though. Cinematography. The nominees were Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, News of the World, Nomadland, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. My personal pick was Nomadland, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to Mank. Oh man, so this is one where I'm surprised, but also not surprised at all. I thought the cinematography for Mank was excellent. It was actually one of the standout aspects of that film for me, and one of the major things that I praised it for. It would have been my second choice for both my personal pick and prediction here, but for some reason, I just thought that Mank was going to be overlooked for the most part this year. I suppose it was in the grand scheme of things, given how many unfulfilled nominations it had, but at least it wasn't this year's Irishman with no wins. So, not what I expected, but not a surprise either, and certainly not upsetting for me. Film editing. The nominees were The Father, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. My personal pick was Sound of Metal, but I thought The Father would actually win. And the Oscar went to Sound of Metal. Wow, so the second category of the night where my personal pick came out on top, but wasn't my actual prediction. I honestly thought that this one had no chance. I was sure that everybody's focus on this film was gonna be from a sound perspective, but I'm so happy that it got the recognition it did for its visuals too. I really think the film editing and the sound editing went hand in hand here to make this as immersive of a movie as it was. So I'm very surprised, but also very happy here. Original score. The nominees were Da 5 Bloods, Mank, Minari, News of the World, and Soul. My personal pick was Soul, and I also thought it would actually win. And the Oscar went to Soul. No surprise here, but it definitely kept you on the edge of your seat as they were announcing the winner, since Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross were involved in 2 of the scores. But that John Batiste at the end let us all breathe a sigh of relief. To be fair, I actually enjoyed all of the nominated scores this year, though I'm still surprised by the Tenet snub. But of the nominees, Soul was the clear standout for me. That mix of jazz and ethereal electronic music was perfect for the film, and despite being so seemingly different, really meshed together in a sonically pleasing way. Original song. The nominees were Fight for You from Judas and the Black Messiah, Hear My Voice from The Trial of the Chicago 7, Husavik from Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga, Yossi from The Life Ahead, and Speak Now from One Night in Miami. My personal pick was Husavik from Eurovision Song Contest, but I thought Speak Now from One Night in Miami would actually win. And the Oscar went to Fight for You from Judas and the Black Messiah. So this was one of the biggest surprises of the night for me. Certainly not the biggest, but I did not expect it at all. I wanted Husavik, but I thought for sure it was going to either Speak Now or Yossi. Fight for You was okay, but this was a really big surprise here for me. Best Picture. The nominees were The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7. Okay, so before I remind you of my pick and prediction here, I just gotta say it was so bizarre for the ceremony not to end on Best Picture. So don't worry, I didn't forget the other categories. I'm just going in the order that they were presented in this year. My personal pick was The Trial of the Chicago 7, but I thought Minari would actually win. And the Oscar went to Nomadland. Okay, so no real surprise here. Honestly, I liked all 8 nominees, so I was going to be happy with any of them winning. I picked The Trial of the Chicago 7 as my personal choice because it was my favorite of all of the otherwise equally worthy films in my mind, but I thought it was going to come down to either Minari or Nomadland. I gave the edge to Minari, but it seems the Academy voters gave the edge to Nomadland. Definitely had to be a close one though. Actress in a leading role. The nominees were Viola Davis in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Andra Day in The United States vs. Billie Holiday, Vanessa Kirby in Pieces of a Woman, Frances McDormand in Nomadland, and Carey Mulligan in Promising Young Woman. My personal pick was Carey Mulligan, but I thought Frances McDormand would actually win. And the Oscar went to Frances McDormand. There was some tough competition in this category this year, and while I think almost any of them had a decent shot, I thought McDormand was the obvious choice. But this was another one of those categories where after I posted my predictions and then went to look at other people's predictions, I was getting a little nervous because I didn't see anybody else predicting a McDormand win. So it seems like this was a bit of an upset win for most people, but I thought McDormand really embodied this character, and I can't even remotely imagine anybody else in this role. Actor in a leading role. The nominees were Riz Ahmed in Sound of Metal, Chadwick Boseman in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Anthony Hopkins in The Father, Gary Oldman in Mank, and Steven Yeun in Minari. My personal pick was Riz Ahmed, but I thought Chadwick Boseman would actually win. And the Oscar went to Anthony Hopkins. This was very unexpected. I loved Hopkins' performance, and I certainly think he was deserving of the win, but man, this was a huge upset, and certainly the most shocking category of the night. With the switch in normal presenting order, moving Best Picture up and leaving Best Actor for last, it seemed like they were very obviously setting up for a posthumous Boseman win and memorial recognition moment to end the night. And honestly, I'm sure the producers and showrunners thought that that was gonna happen and are just as shocked as the rest of us. But it made for a startling and anticlimactic end, especially since Hopkins wasn't even present to give a speech. It just ended, and kind of on an awkward note. Alright, so there you have it, my reaction to the 93rd Academy Awards. I correctly predicted 13 out of 23 winners, and 11 of my 23 personal picks actually won. Combined, I correctly picked or predicted 15 of 23. So not horrible, but not great either. Some of my picks were a little unconventional, so I can't say I'm too surprised. Compared to last year, I actually tied with my correct predictions at 13, tied with my personal picks at 11, and got one less combo pick with 15 instead of last year's 16. So my numbers were almost completely identical to last year, but I did do slightly better percentage-wise this year since there was one fewer category thanks to the consolidation of the sound categories. So, how did you do with your predictions? I'd love to see your thoughts on the Oscar results, especially some of those upsets, and also your prediction percentage, so be sure to post them in the comments below. Remember, I've already reviewed some of these movies, so I've got links to those videos in the description below, and you can check those out if you want some more in-depth discussion of each, as well as my ratings, pros and cons, and even tailored film recommendations. And if you're interested in buying any of these Oscar-nominated and winning movies, I do have affiliate links to all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these Oscar movies. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe if you're at it to see more videos like this, as well as movie reviews. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.